Dear Norton, I loved the little house the first time I toured it with a real estate agent. It was in your tiny village, which some say is hardly a village at all, boasting 8 houses or so, a post office with scant but true hours right next door, and the Canadian border within walking distance. You're out there, and miles from most anywhere by most people's standards. The price on the little house was unbelievable, though, and despite the fact that it needed some work, the big expensive things had been fixed. I didn't play games and bought it right away, a demure 1,000-foot property with a quarter of an acre that still felt like living in the heart of nature. I needed to buy something as inexpensive as possible because my world had turned upside down after my husband of 20 years sustained a brain injury, and after working at it for some years, we both had to admit he wasn't the same, and we weren't the same. I left our house and almost everything in it with him willingly, and had to start anew somehow. I had moved to working part-time to help take care of him while he was at his worst. I had very little funding behind me. I didn't know much about you, Norton, then. I was incredibly blessed to find the place furnished right down to the pots, pans, and cutlery. The place had been used as a camp for years, and the things left behind were outdated and mismatched at best, but they were mine and would certainly do. I began updating the interior with what I had and the little bit I could afford. Leftover paints and tissue paper allowed me to do a paint technique to cover 1970s paneled walls. I sanded and refinished an old table and chairs, and they blossomed into a dining set that looked like new. I couldn't afford new flooring, so I primed and painted the 1970s linoleum and invested in some affordable indoor-outdoor area rugs. I saw my neighbors, your people, out the window or as I walked my dog, and they seemed to watch me carefully from a distance. An elder man who drove by on his lawn tractor nearly every summer day, a younger couple with some children, an older woman and her husband, the husband at the tail end of a fight with cancer. I didn't have a lawnmower, so I approached the elder who drove by almost daily on his riding lawnmower. And as it turned out, he was one of your selectmen, owned the post office building, and drove by so frequently because he took it upon himself to care for a very old cemetery that most people had forgotten and abandoned, way up, nestled in your almost Alaskan forest. He agreed to mow my lawn for very little, and as we chatted, I told him my other visions for the small backyard, where there were some trees choked in brambles and bracken. I wanted to clear that out and have it become a small area for shade, eating outside and relaxing. You know, someday. A month or so later, I looked out my window and saw the elder gent in my backyard with pruners, a rake, a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and a sweatband on his white-haired head, clearing brush. "Oh, no," I gasped when I ran out to him. "There's been a misunderstanding. I don't have money to pay you to do this." He looked at me as if I'd lost my mind, waved my words away. "I need the exercise. This is something I want to do." I continued paying him for lawn mowing, but by the fall he'd cleared the back exactly as I'd envisioned, and out of the goodness of his heart. I'd come home from work and find more and more done each week. It was like unwrapping the most marvelous gift each time. I'd send him soups and other cooked goodies to share. This man was and is like the soul of you, Norton. His family, part of your wildness for generations. Oh, and you are wild. Winter in Vermont, especially so close to Canada, can be a fearsome thing, and the first big snowstorm struck. I had a shovel, but nothing more, and hadn't found anyone to plow the driveway yet. I was curled up on my couch, watching the near blizzard out the window as darkness fell over your breathtaking mountains. I'd have to get up before dawn to shovel, so I could get out for my morning meeting, I thought. There was a noise, then what looked like a light coming into my driveway. The man with the young family next door was snow blowing my driveway. My jaw dropped open, and I bundled up and hurried to him to let him know how grateful I was. What did he charge? He shook snow off his winter hat. "I'm not going to charge anything. My father took care of this place, and now that he's gone, I'm going to do it." He said nothing more and started up the snowblower again. The woman who manned the post office next door could see my little dog sitting on the windowsill each day, watching the comings and goings of patrons. When I went one day, she handed me a wrapped item. "I made this, and I thought it would be really perfect for little Pogo," she said. It was a woolen dog vest that also functioned as a harness. Also, when I walked Pogo down your main road each day, the young woman who worked at your one gas station would come running out, waving her arm. "I have a treat for Pogo!" I couldn't have landed in a more perfect location, Norton. It made my huge life changes something magical, despite so much pain from what brought me to you. This is not Norton. This is a much more wonderful place than that, I told friends. From now on, I'm calling it the land of Nortonia. Much love, Tanya.